Give me 13 minutes. That's it. Because that voice in your head that keeps whispering, you're not ready. You're not good enough. Who do you think you are? We're about to destroy it permanently. And no, this isn't about confidence tricks. This isn't positive thinking. It works even if you're skeptical, especially if you're skeptical. I've got 5 tips for how to make this happen. So let's dive straight in with tip number 1. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes. They treat self-doubt like a judgment about who they are, like it's evidence, like it's telling the truth. But self-doubt is not a verdict. It's a body-based signal of identity stretch. In other words, self-doubt shows up not when you're incapable, but when you're stepping outside a familiar version of yourself. That's it. Your brain's job is not to help you grow. It's to keep you safe. And anything unfamiliar, even something that you consciously want, gets flagged as a threat. So when you hear, "I'm not ready," what's actually happening is, this version of me hasn't done this before. Not, you're bad, you're unqualified, you're about to fail, just new identity detected. Neuroscience supports this. Your nervous system is constantly scanning for familiarity, not truth, not potential. Familiar feels safe. Unfamiliar feels dangerous, even when unfamiliar is objectively better for you, which is why self-doubt almost always spikes right before growth, not after failure. So here's the shift I want you to make, starting today. Stop asking, is this self-doubt true? Because that question keeps you stuck in debate. Instead, ask, what identity is being stretched right now? Because once you see self-doubt as a signal, not cold, hard truth, it immediately loses authority. I learned this the hard way. Every meaningful change that I have made in my life, every single one, came with a surge of self-doubt beforehand. Not because I was wrong, but because I was crossing an internal line that I hadn't crossed before. And the moment that I stopped treating self-doubt like a warning sign and started treating it like a marker of expansion, everything changed. So in a sentence, tip number 1 is this. Stop treating self-doubt like it's a verdict, like it's the truth about your abilities. If you take nothing else from this first part, take this. Self-doubt doesn't mean stop. It usually means you're early. And once you understand that, you stop trying to silence self-doubt and start outgrowing it. Okay, so now let's move on and talk about the one thing your brain actually responds to and why reassurance doesn't work at all. So let's get into tip number 2. Now, here's where most people accidentally make self-doubt worse. When that voice shows up, they try to reassure themselves. They say things like, I'm confident, I can do this, I've got this. And look, there's nothing wrong with those thoughts. But here's the truth that no one tells you. Your nervous system is not impressed by encouragement, and it is definitely not impressed by your vision board. It's impressed by proof. Your brain is constantly asking one question. Do I have evidence that I can survive this? Not, is this inspiring? Is this logical? Is this what I want? Just, have we done something like this before and lived? If the answer is no, your brain doesn't calm down. It tightens its grip, which is why self-doubt often gets louder the more that you try to talk yourself out of it. This is why affirmations alone don't work for most people. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It updates beliefs through behavior, not declarations. In psychology, this is called self-efficacy, the belief that you can handle what's coming because you have evidence that you already have. And that evidence doesn't come from thinking. It comes from follow-through. So instead of asking, how do I make myself feel more confident? Ask, what evidence can I give my brain today? Not big evidence, not dramatic evidence, not the 5-year plan, just enough evidence to say, we've done something adjacent to this before. That's it. If you want confidence about speaking up, evidence looks like saying one sentence instead of staying silent. If you want confidence about being seen, evidence looks like posting before you feel polished. If you want confidence when it comes to making a decision, evidence looks like choosing something instead of waiting for certainty. Every tiny follow-through deposits proof, and proof is what quiets self-doubt. When I look back at the moments when my confidence actually changed, it was never after a breakthrough thought. It was always after action, often awkward action, often imperfect action, but action that showed my brain, we're not imagining this, we're doing it. Confidence is not something that you wait for. It's something that your brain grants you after you move. So tip number 2 is this. Your brain doesn't respond to reassurance, it responds to evidence. Which is why the fastest way to weaken self-doubt is not to convince yourself that you're ready, but to give your brain receipts. And once you understand this, once you stop chasing confidence and start building evidence, something even more powerful starts to happen. Your identity begins to shift. And that's where self-doubt really starts to lose its grip. Quick pause, because if this is resonating, I want to support you beyond this video. I created something called The Reset. It's a free 5-day guided challenge that's designed to help you interrupt self-doubt patterns and calm your nervous system and start showing up differently right away. Each day is short, no journaling marathons, no hype, just 5 days of simple prompts and practices that help you to stop spiraling and start acting from a steadier place. So you can join it for free. The link is below. Okay, now let's move on to tip number 3 and talk about the real reason identity matters. This is the part that most people miss, and it's where everything that we have talked about so far actually comes together. In the last section, we talked about how confidence comes after action. You move first. You give your brain evidence, and then confidence follows. Here's what that action is really doing behind the scenes. It's not just building confidence, it's updating identity. Self-doubt lives in one specific place, the gap between what you're doing and who you still think you are. That's it. You don't hesitate because you lack ability. You hesitate because your self-image hasn't caught up yet. So when you think, I should speak up, I should apply, I should start, and then you stall, what's actually happening is not fear. It's friction. Your behavior is ahead of your identity. Let's take an example. Think about speaking up in a room. Most people are perfectly capable of sharing an idea, or asking a question, or offering an opinion. There is no special training required. And yet, many people stay silent. Not because they don't know what to say, but because it doesn't yet match how they see themselves. I'm not the kind of person who speaks up. That's identity friction. And that internal resistance isn't self-doubt telling you to stop. It's your nervous system trying to keep your identity consistent. And whenever behavior moves ahead of identity, self-doubt shows up to slow things down. So here's the key insight. Action builds evidence. Evidence updates identity. And once identity updates, self-doubt has nowhere to live. You're not fighting doubt, you're closing the gap. So when I look back at the biggest changes that I have made, leaving medicine, stepping into visibility, standing on a TEDx stage, publishing a book, none of those moves started with confidence. They started with action before my identity caught up. And for a while, self-doubt showed up, not because I was wrong, but because my self-concept was still updating. And eventually it did. And the doubt stopped being relevant. Identity doesn't shift through declarations, it shifts through repeated behavior. Not, I am a confident person now, but I show up even when I'm nervous. I act before I feel certain. I don't disappear when it feels uncomfortable. Each one is a vote, and enough votes rewrite who you believe you are. Self-doubt doesn't disappear because you eliminate it. It disappears because your identity finally catches up to the life that you're already living. So this is tip number 3. Self-doubt exists in the gap, and identity is what closes that gap. Now, coming up next, let's talk about where most people accidentally undo their progress. They take action, they build evidence, identity starts to shift, and then they let self-doubt sit around long enough to talk them out of the next move. So next, I want to show you a simple timing rule that prevents that from happening. So here's the problem that most people don't realize they have. They don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they give self-doubt too much time. Time to think, time to analyze, time to gather imaginary evidence, time to talk themselves out of the very thing that would have built confidence. So here's the rule that I want you to adopt. When self-doubt shows up, you have 24 hours to act, not to decide perfectly or to feel ready, to move in some direction. Because self-doubt ages badly. Leave it sitting around long enough and it hardens into identity. Self-doubt feeds on mental rehearsal without action. The more you replay a situation in your head, the more real the fear feels, even though nothing has actually happened. Action interrupts that loop. It sends a signal to your nervous system, we're not in danger, we're moving. And once that signal goes out, self-doubt loses leverage. Think of self-doubt like milk. Fresh, it's manageable. Leave it out long enough, and now it's a problem. You don't have to do the whole thing. You just have to do the next visible thing. Send the email, not the whole pitch. Book the call, not the life plan. Publish the post, not the perfect brand. Forward movement matters more than doing something big and showy. Every time that I have overridden self-doubt quickly, it weakened. Every time I let it kind of linger, it got persuasive. That's not a mindset issue. That's timing. So tip number 4 is don't let self-doubt sit long enough to fossilize. Self-doubt doesn't disappear when you understand it. It disappears when you outpace it. All right, now here is the final piece, the one that completes the promise that I made at the beginning of this video. Because the goal is not to silence self-doubt. The goal is to outgrow it. So let's talk about that. Here's the part that surprises most people. The goal is not to silence self-doubt. It's not to eradicate it. It's not to never feel it again. The goal is to make it irrelevant. Because the truth is, self-doubt doesn't disappear when you finally become fearless. It disappears when it no longer fits who you are. Self-doubt is a byproduct of transition. It lives in the space between who you've been and who you're becoming. So when people obsess over eliminating it, they actually keep themselves stuck in that in-between space. They keep checking. Is it gone yet? Do I feel confident now? Why is it still here? And that keeps self-doubt front and center. Instead of asking, how do I get rid of self-doubt? Ask, what kind of person would this doubt no longer make sense for? Because once your identity expands, self-doubt doesn't need to be fought. It simply doesn't belong. Think about something that you do easily now that once terrified you. Driving, having hard conversations, making decisions without asking everyone for reassurance. You didn't eliminate the fear first, you just outgrew it. The fear became outdated. There are still moments in my life where self-doubt shows up, but it doesn't stop me anymore. Not because I'm special, not because I'm fearless, but because it no longer has authority over my behavior. That's the real shift. Self-doubt doesn't lose power when you defeat it. It loses power when you keep moving anyway, when you build evidence, when you update your identity, when you act before certainty. Eventually, it stops getting a vote. So bottom line, tip number 5 is this. The goal is not to eliminate self-doubt, it's to outgrow it. All right, there you have it. If you enjoyed this video, I think that you are going to love the next one that I have got queued up for you on the final screen. It's called Stop Letting Yourself Down, How to Actually Achieve Your Goals. And I will see you there. Keeping an eye on the battery. Uh-oh, it's getting low. I always do this to myself. Should have swapped the battery out. Okay, that's okay. So tip number 4 is don't let oh boy. I am afraid that I'm going to run out of battery. 6% might be okay.